Welcome back. You're watching Uongozi Today. We are on the tail end of the program right now, 8 o'clock on the nose. We're looking at some of the positions in government so far, with the Yala now having selected the members the 9 members who will represent Kenya at the East Africa Legislative Assembly as well. But critically, we want to analyze also that particular objection that came from the courts in regard to the selection of the principal secretaries in light of the gender parity and the composition of some of these names that were put there. And there was a very interesting list that was put forward. And of course, this is just to also, of course, provoke and stimulate discussion around it. Regional tribal composition for nominated principal secretaries, they're all listed here. And if my director may just put up some of this, and I think this was doing round in social media as well, from the Kalenjins, the Kikuyu, the Luyas, and the Kamba, and the Somali. And we see that from that particular list, we had 13 from the Kalenjin and 13 also from the Kikuyu. Luya, we had 6. The names are given there: Julius Korir, Esther Ngero, Aurelia Roda, Julius Bitok, Chris Kipto, Korir Singoi, Nixon Korir, John Kipchumba, Peter Tum, Bello Kipsang, Harry Kimotai, Festus Ngeno, Paul Rono. Most of them also were reserved from the previous regime, who were critically in major also sectors of the ministries. We have from Kikuyu community, Caroline Nyawera, Patrick Mariro. We have Rosaline Jogu, Amos Gathesha, Joseph Mbugwa, Charles Hinga has been also maintained, Josephine Mburu, Esther Dara, Patrick Kibiru, Ephantus Kimobo, Alex Washira, Elijah Mwangi, Betsy Modoni. Those are 13. From the Luya community, James Mohati, Edward Kisiangani, Beatrice Inyangala, Juma Mukwana, Susan Mageni, Sylvia Naseo Mohoro. And we have Kamba, Teresia Baika, Veronica Mweni, Jonathan Mweke, Joseph Motavi. From the Somali community, we have 8. We have Mohammed Dagar, Philip Kelo Harsama, Abubakar Hassan, Ismail Made, Ume Mohammed Liban, Abdi Dubat, Idris Dogota, and they go on and on. I think the list is also down here, some of the names there. We can just talk about this composition. People were saying from the Somali community that it's not true reflection, that we have 8 also. There's the splinters, the Borana community and the rest as well. But now here we are. The court has made its stance on this, and given this particular list, you're talking about political alignment. This is where also you missed as the principal secretary yourself, because you're not politically aligned. What do we have to say about this? Let's just begin with you, Martinolo.
Again, these are the president's choices. They have come out of a process. Whether that process was meant to just sanitize or to just meet the requirements of the law is another thing. I take the view, and this is something that I want to go on record for, that at the end of the day, the person who has been voted for by Kenyan is the president. And we must look at some of the demands we are making on a leader to meet, and some of the expectations we have on the leader, and whether we should not be relooking at some of these things and asking ourselves, what do we require to deliver, or what does a president require to deliver? And sometimes they'll come with their friends, they'll come with their people they believe in. Is that going to be enough for them to deliver? If they can't deliver, Kenyans will judge them for it. But the things we are requiring, that bring in so and so, bring in this and that, are okay, because that's what our constitution is saying. But how realistic are we? So we must also be asking ourselves, how realistic are we? Look at it this way, divide in another way. When were the elections last held, and whether healing has happened? The question is, the elections were held on August 9th. There is no properly formed government as we speak. Why? Because of some of these things we have provided for ourselves that, if you ask me, do not necessarily add value. Because at the end of the day, whether the president wants to work with only the Kalenjins or want to work only with the Kikuyus, if he believes that's how he is going to deliver his agenda, let's judge him against an agenda, not just because he worked with everybody, but because we have put it in our constitution, because we have put it in our laws. Some of these requirements are important, so he has to meet them. But I keep saying there is no magic to that issue. The Uhuru government was here. We saw what the appointments were looking like. Now, you can justify it, they were merit and so on. The Ruto government is here, the Moi government was there. Maybe one of the things you can actually say that even without this Constitution of Kenya 2010, in making appointments, Moi actually was balancing interests across the country, whether they were good balancing or not. For example, Kamotho was in the cabinet, and Kamotho was the only fellow from Central in his cabinet for a while. But he kept on making sure that balance was there. But increasingly, in the Jubilee 10 years, and now the Kenya Kwanza 10 years, we have not seen that kind of balance coming through as a matter of course. It's only a question of meeting legislative requirement, which is even not being done well. Hence, the reason for the petition, the reason for the opposition. Because then what you're saying is, if the law is there, to what extent have you complied? If you don't like the law, why don't you talk about the changes of the law so that we have a system of where we go by the rule of law, not the rule by law.
Right. So, but to avoid these petitions, should we also expand maybe the mandate of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission in the first place? That once we have such a list, it should go through, the commission to try, because we've been given the commission that particular responsibility of making sure we have the face of Kenya, especially in the parastatals and such appointments as well at the end of the day. All that we see is, after a while, they'll come up with a report that, yes. So to avoid coming with a report, why can't we just be proactive and say, once we have this list from, the government, it should go through the commission, and the commission will verify, does it really represent the face of Kenya? And then we can go full steam ahead and, go through the entire process so that they can be vetted.
You see, Dibalo, the president took an oath, and I think it's at the back of this constitution, to protect the constitution. Uphold the law. Uphold. Now, that constitution has a chapter on public service. That constitution requires the president to make appointment. I personally do not see why you want to refer to a mere commission that has less power, has
achieved little.
Yeah, achieved little, and is not meant to go beyond reports. Theirs is to analyze and say, look, this is how you deviated. Now, you have seen how cases have been collapsing around powerful people in this country. Do you expect the commission to be the one holding the stick against the powerful, the mighty and powerful? It won't happen. The president, and I like what the courts have done, the president must be put to task and asked to uphold and respect the principles and values in the Constitution. He may not have believed in it. I mean, it is not. It's an open secret that the president has never believed in the Constitution. He opposed it. There was an attempt to improve on it through the building bridges. He was again at the forefront. He has never believed in inclusivity. One of the things that was, the nine recommendations. But once he's elected, whether he believes in the aspirations and values and in the Constitution, that is immaterial. He must be asked to respect those values. So I do not like the approach that my brother is suggesting, that we amend the Constitution to suit the whims of the president. No, the president must pull up his socks, literally.
I'm saying that some of these provisions are unnecessary barriers to formation of a government.
No. There is a reason why Kenyans, in their wisdom,
in the hindsight, let's look at it now.
When Yashpal guy, we are not going to lower the values merely because people who have been charged with the responsibility of implementing the Constitution have fallen below the par. Let the Constitution remain up there. Let's put to task those who are charged with the responsibility of, and more so those who have taken the solemn oath. So the president, the reason why the president takes 2 oaths, The most primary one is to ensure that that constitution is, and that constitution is not the book, it's not the cover, it is the values and aspirations in it. And I think if we are really to unite the country, because this is something that was on the lips of everybody,
I'm coming, I'm already.
They must ensure that, you know, they uphold it. So
I have no problem with that,
agree entirely with
Churchill.
the court. We hope that the court will insist. Of course, we do not want to go into the merits, but when I saw the president thought that all other principal secretaries deserved to go, except those from a particular region and ethnic community, I saw that he had already gotten it wrong.
As they say this, I want them to answer me. Is it fair to keep a voter who voted his government?
Prof, then we come to you.
Yeah.
Something I don't understand about my colleague here and Dr. Law. He is going forward and backward. And I don't understand that because he's a lawyer. At least that's what I'm meant to understand. This is the position of the law.
Yeah.
A funding equal, that is Article 232, sub-article, is it I? A funding equal and a funding adequate and equal opportunities for appointment, training, and advancement at all levels of the public service of men and women, the members of all ethnic groups, and the persons with disability. That is the position of the law, Article 232. Now, why I agree about maybe expanding the responsibility of national cohesion as a check, because of passions, individual passions need to be controlled. That is why we have the law. We carried research at the NSCIT when I was there. I published a paper. Maybe next Friday, if I'm around, I want to come with that paper. I published it. We were checking whether there has been active discrimination in the country in employment. Whether people working in public enterprises reflect the ratio in society, the percentages, because they are there. The statistics are there. And we find by and large that discrimination is actually by and large is not being there. Because if you check the Kikuyus, check the Luos, the Big Five, you find that they reflected the ratio, population ratio within society in every establishment except one community. So why the Constitution demanded that you give equal opportunity is because the public service is a source of resource, it's a resource, which need to be equitably distributed. So when it's threatened, that distribution is also threatened. And that's why I said my brother is arguing backward, forward and backward. The problem we have been having in this, in search for power and so on, was exactly because we need to access that resource as a community of Kenyans, not as one or two groups within the country. So if the national cohesion were to be a check that you develop the list, then before announcement you also check it to someone else, he may help. The other thing that could help is setting up a commission equivalent to Judicial Service Commission with a final say on who need to be appointed, because again, like we are saying, the passions, individual passions, are just there. Well, that's what he is admitting. And if it is difficult to control and to make you obey the law, then we can set up something like Judicial Service Commission, or restrain the organization. It may be weak now or weak even before, but the truth is they will get stronger. The Tanzanians formed theirs as independent. So they are more national now, you understand, than we are. So I don't see any fault in people suggesting that we try to have a formula of which we can be inclusive, that is obeying Article 10 and obeying Article 232.
Thank you, Dibal. I really do not know whether in appointing cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries, the court has power to direct upon this one and that one, this one and that one. That, I think they will decide and we'll look. I don't want to get to something which is sub judice. But this is a country which is about 50-something years old, going 60.
60.
It's still fragile, it is still young. And that is why we had something called affirmative action. Affirmative action, number one, is lifting the weak. We live in this country, we need the Ogieks, even the Asian community, even the Wazungus amongst us. As we move more, we realize that they are being left behind. So the Constitution talks about affirmative action. Then part of our national cohesion is people feel satisfied. They feel happy when they see the faces from their communities sitting at the high table. They may not be benefiting directly, they may not be the best of them all, but you want to see. I saw my brother Dastan Omari say, there is no Kisi in principal secretary position. And you see, it may sound something funny, but it is in the hearts of the people. People feel it. People say, yeah, actually none of us. So I think that list, the president will be able to look at it, look at the country, look at where we want to go, and sometimes assuaging people's feelings so that we don't have a narrative, we don't plant and water a narrative that those who win elections will have more than half. It can easily bring down this country. It can easily make some people say, why are we paying taxes?
Exactly. Good.
Why are we doing this? So that I would directly appeal to the president that as you make some of these choices, yes, people supported you in very difficult circumstances. Some were threatened, people stood by you. But as a president, you are accountable to God, you are accountable to the Kenya as a whole. So let every Kenyan, let the Ogieks, let the Ndorois, let the Waindis in this country, when they see you, they see their president. And some of these, they want to see them in cabinet, they want to see them in the principal secretary. Those are the top echelons where money and the cake is being cut. You want to see one of your own. Whether you will get it or not is another thing. So, Your Excellency, please look at this. The next batch, you look at the cabinet slots. I think the Kikuyu nation got a huge chunk. I think the Kalenjin nation got a huge chunk. If you add the principal secretary, again, huge chunk Kikuyu nation, huge chunk Kalenjin nation, you run the risk of balkanizing Kenyans. They can gang up and think this country ni ya Wakikuyu na hii country ni ya Wakalenjin. Kwa hivyo, for us, we are, and you never know, any small thing can destroy our country. That I appeal to you, please, because we love you so much. We know you will succeed, and we know the man from Nyakach will also shall have recovered. And the country will lose lifted.
Today, Weather and Professor are in agreement. I know, and they're speaking from what the law is. But again, how realistic are we? For example, you only have 22 maximum now, 25 slots for cabinets. How many tribes do we have? We have only so many positions to fill. If each tribe wants to be seen, that will be another story. What I think is important is that let us look at this person we're calling the voter. Because at the end of the day, the voter who is a Kenyan who has decided to vote this government expects certain deliverables. When we put strictures and we put other players like the courts and other players like the assembly and other organs, what we are now doing is that we are holding back this appointee or this person who has been elected by Kenyans from delivering. Now, I have said this, and the professor is laughing, but the point is this. Is it fair? Is it right for a Kenyan voter who made his decision or her decision on 8th or 9th of August to still have no full government in place to serve him or her or to serve them? So the question is, are we shooting ourselves in the foot? When do you start counting the 100 days?
Are you actually a lawyer?
Why are you questioning if he's a lawyer?
Bosman.
He's a consummate lawyer.
Bosman.
What do you mean?
I'm a consummate lawyer.
Yeah.
Because I expect him to be protecting the law.
Professor.
He's not protecting
Professor.
the law.
No.
Professor.
He's a great
No,
lawyer.
this I learned to tell you. I have the necessary qualifications to practice law?
Exactly.
I don't think you have studied law anywhere.
No,
So
I'm not.
so read this constitution and understand that I'm telling you, I'm talking as a lawyer. When I talk of the rights of a voter, I am talking of a human rights issue enshrined in the Constitution. You see, what you're doing is a selective reading of the Constitution. What I'm saying, perhaps it's time we look at the holistic nature of our constitutional provisions and how they are actually holistic.
So as I'm president, I can appoint
No, I'm not telling you when you are. I'm saying,
let him finish his point.
I am saying, Professor, that this law as made 10 to 13, 14 years ago has been tested. And I'm giving you one example. There's elections done in August 9th. We are talking about 18th of November. You don't have a fully formed government. Is that a desirable position? Is that a desirable position?
Debal, I have this problem with a fully formed government. I asked at the very beginning, which office is vacant in government? There are principal secretaries in office. Appointed by who? Office. None other than the former president and the current.
Yeah.
And the current.
Yeah.
You know, we are forgetting that the current president was the deputy president until he took over in September.
What if it was Raila who had won? You see, these are things we should look at.
Bureaucracies outlasts elected leaders.
Allow me.
Today we have governors who are still, but it's not that they don't have executive committees, they do. So when you talk about government, there is no single office in government that is vacant. So this idea of this government, yes, it may not have been formed in the image and likeness.
Government was changed on 9th.
In the image and likeness of William Samoei Ruto. But there is a government, there are principal secretaries. No. What we are saying is, and that's where I disagree with the law, if we have 22 cabinet slots, and even added a few more at the level we were told, Monica Juma and others, and we have 51. You are saying that some deserve to have 15 and others are yet to get one. You have 71 slots.
That's why
how many ethnic communities are there in Kenya? That the Ogieks that Ambrose Weda is talking about are yet to have somebody qualified to be a principal secretary. That some communities have over 10. They are overqualified. They are full to the brim with qualifications. This is what we are urging the president. That despite the obvious reluctance to accept this constitution, we must constantly, including through the courts, encourage His Excellency to abide by the letter and spirit of the constitution. Over and above the prayers that Weda, of course, will be saying for him, we must also constantly remind His Excellency that you swore to protect. You are now the president. You may not have supported this constitution during its adoption. You may not have supported the Building Bridges initiative. You have now created a position that was espoused in that BBI through the chief cabinet secretary. You must now therefore proceed and also abide by the other provisions of that constitution, including the requirement of 232 that all public appointments. Look at the instance of women, for example.
Yeah, I was coming to the question.
Did the president not appear at Nyayo House in reaction to nomination of Martha Karua as running mate and read a charter in front of the public, in front of national television?
The women's charter.
Honestly, Ambrose Weda would say that the period is too short. It is also too short to have forgotten that he read a charter, he made a charter, an agreement with women, that 50% would be women. If that has already been, reneged on, then what other expectations do we have? So we must hold people who have been given the mandate to account. And as the saying goes, to whom much is given, much is expected and demanded. This time we are demanding.
Prof, we'll come to you. Let's say from when, then we come to you, Prof. On the issue that is being raised, I wanted just to ask the same question on the gender parity. That should not even be on the table right now, because the president was very clear. It will be a 50%, of course, percent representation. But he is being questioned on that. The Women's Charter was launched at Nyayo National Stadium. Pomp and color. And we knew he's vouching for the women as well at the end of the day. Why should we also be having a petition on that?
Thank you. There are things that you speak in campaign to get support. There are realities of
obtaining by false pretense.
They're so stuck with the law that they are not being progressive.
Obtaining by false pretense.
Don't heckle.
It's what I talked about.
There is the reality when you enter the office, the reality when things come. Then there is also the progressive. So that, let's look at him mid-term. We say, okay, you have been in office for 2.5 years. You missed it in cabinet, you missed it in PS, now where are you? Because if you are also looking at the face of Kenya, it should be on a wide basis. Not if you have 3 slots, then you say 3 slots. It should be on a wide basis. That is, in my view, much better. But there's something that Olo said, which that we should allow government to form. As a lawyer, you know that the judiciary, they have a role. And one of their basic role is, if you walk in there, rightly or wrongly, merit or no merit, you have a right to be heard. There's a duty to due process. So any time, even if anybody goes to court and says, I don't like so-and-so on that list, the court will have to hear. That's what is now called. The court will have to hear and say, oh, why don't you like him? If they find there's no merit, out. So the process now of questioning the list, there are 2 things: what we think about the list, and also the process of questioning it in court. And I think the process that the court is doing is in accordance with the Constitution. They're saying, okay, let's look at it. Let's look at the merits, and then we will pronounce ourselves on it. It is good. Thirdly, it is good. We are stretching our democracy. We are expanding it. I'm sure the next president, I'm sure even Honorable William Samuel Ruto, next time he has a list of names, you always remember somebody can go to court. The Constitution says this. That's how we are expanding our democracy. So it's a good thing. It is a very good thing. But that Puritan approach that Super Churchill wants, because they didn't get this government, it is progressive. There are many considerations. Yes, the women could have been promised 50-50. But when you go in and you find the real things, and they tell you, look, we have to give Yala to so-and-so. We have to give Yala to Winnie. Or then you say, these are not, at least for Yala, these are our women.
No. But we need to take a short break.
Yes.
Because I don't think your argument really flies. Because Ruto has been in the previous, he has been in the previous regime, right? He knows what really happened. Even right now, with Uhuru Kenyatta and the dissolution of, cabinets, right? Because of issue of gender parity. He should have been all the wiser when it happened.
He was already inside.
Yes, so he's actually just transitioned to, this current regime. So he should be checking all the lists.
The ball, when you go into
checking
power,
all
the shareholders. Please get that.
Shareholders.
It's easier. When you are going to talk to ladies, forgive me. When you are going to talk to ladies, then you'll be eating fish and chips. And there will be tours, and you'll be living in permanent tiled homes. But when people get married, including you and Professor here, when they come in, she goes to the Liver Pains alone. She's the one cooking in the house. I've told you, as long as the devil is still around, let's just wait for Jesus to come.
Okay, we'll take a short break right now. All right, and then after that, we continue the conversation on the litmus test on the current regime with the CS's position as well, and the PSN nominees that has been ground to a halt right now because of the petition in court. We take a short break.